Evelyn Reed, a woman whose life had long been defined by the meticulous order of financial ledgers, found her world beginning to unravel, not in a balance sheet, but in the subtle, unsettling changes in her son, Leo. At 10 years old, Leo was a vibrant, imaginative boy, perpetually curious and wonderfully messy. His room, a riot of half-finished Lego castles and fantastical drawings of spacefaring dragons, was a testament to his boundless creativity. He devoured books on ancient civilizations, asked complex questions about the universe, and possessed a mischievous glint in his eye that promised adventure. He'd spend hours recounting elaborate tales of his day, his voice animated, his hands gesturing wildly. Evelyn, a forensic accountant by trade, had built her career on spotting discrepancies, anomalies that hinted at deeper truths. But the changes in Leo weren't numbers on a spreadsheet. They were shifts in his very essence, insidious and unsettling, far harder to pinpoint, yet impossible to ignore. The trouble, Evelyn would later reflect, had begun insidiously, almost imperceptibly, shortly after Leo started his fifth-grade year at Hawthorne Academy. Hawthorne, nestled amidst manicured lawns and stately oak trees, was the elite private school in their city. Its brochure boasted about fostering holistic growth and independent thought, promising to mold students into future leaders. Evelyn, a single mother who worked tirelessly to afford the exorbitant tuition, had believed every word. At first, Leo seemed to thrive. He spoke of the headmaster, Dr. Alistair Thorne, with an almost reverent awe. Thorne, with his silver hair, calming baritone, and erudite charm, was a figure of immense authority and seemingly boundless wisdom. He'd deliver eloquent speeches at assemblies, his words woven with themes of community harmony, shared values, and the collective pursuit of excellence. Evelyn, like many other parents, was initially captivated by his vision. But as weeks turned into months, a faint, disquieting hum began to resonate beneath the polished surface of Hawthorne's perfection. The first concrete sign was the art. Leo, who once painted sprawling murals of chaotic interstellar battles in vibrant, clashing colors, began producing remarkably uniform pieces. His dragons became streamlined, almost identical, adhering to a muted palette of blues, greens, and grays. "It's the school's new art appreciation focus, Mom," he'd explained, his voice flat, devoid of his usual artistic fervor. "We're learning about structured aesthetics now." Then came the books. His beloved fantasy novels were replaced by nonfiction texts on civic responsibility and global citizenship, topics that, while important, seemed to have extinguished his personal joy in reading. His questions, once probing and imaginative, became rhetorical, almost like rehearsed statements. "Why is it important to always agree, Mom?" he'd ask, not waiting for an answer, but rather as if testing a concept. Even his cherished Legos, once a testament to spontaneous construction, were now sorted meticulously by color and size, assembled into precise, symmetrical structures. The chaotic beauty of his mind, the vibrant individuality that Evelyn adored, seemed to be slowly, systematically being sanded down. Evelyn, with her forensic mind, started compiling a mental ledger of these changes. It wasn't just the what, but the how. The lack of emotion in Leo's voice when he spoke of his new interests, the almost robotic way he recited Hawthorne's tenets, the distant, glazed-over look in his eyes when she tried to engage him in one of their old rambling conversations. It was as if a part of him, the unique spark of Leo, was slowly fading, replaced by an echo. This feeling gnawed at her, a professional instinct screaming that something was fundamentally off. She tried to brush it off as normal developmental shifts, the influence of a new school, peer pressure, but her gut, honed by years of sniffing out deception, told her otherwise. She started attending more school events, lingering in the hallways, observing the other children. She noticed it there too, a pervasive, almost eerie politeness, an absence of the usual boisterous energy of children their age. The uniformity wasn't just in the art, it was in their very demeanor. The hum of disquiet grew louder, transforming into a distinct, chilling vibration. Evelyn knew, with a sinking certainty, that she needed to find the source of this dissonance before the Leo she knew and loved was completely gone. Now let's move into part 2, where Evelyn begins her active investigation and the subtle oddities of Hawthorne Academy start to reveal deeper, more disturbing patterns. This is where we'll introduce her initial attempts to get answers and the resistance she faces. Here's a detailed continuation for part 2, aiming for the depth and engagement we discussed. Evelyn's forensic mind, accustomed to disassembling financial fraud, now turned its rigorous gaze upon Hawthorne Academy. Her initial attempts were subtle, aimed at gathering more data. She volunteered for the PTA, attended every parent-teacher conference, and even signed up for parent observation days in Leo's classroom. The school, superficially, was a marvel of educational design. Classrooms were bright, technologically advanced, and the teachers, impeccably professional, spoke in measured, soothing tones. But the more Evelyn observed, the more the pervasive calm began to feel less like serenity and more like suppression. The children, even during recess, engaged in structured play, their laughter muted, their interactions remarkably free of the usual childish squabbles or spontaneous outbursts. During lessons, they answered questions with uncanny precision, often echoing the teacher's exact phrasing. It was a learning environment designed for perfection, and perfection, Evelyn knew, often masked a deeper imperfection. Her attempts to casually question teachers about Leo's new interests or the structured aesthetics curriculum were met with polite, yet firm evasions. Leo is simply adapting beautifully to our holistic approach, Mrs. Reed. Mrs. Albright, Leo's homeroom teacher, would say, her smile fixed, her eyes curiously flat. He's truly embracing our values. It was always values, harmony, collective pursuit. The vocabulary was a carefully curated lexicon, repeated until it lost all meaning, becoming a verbal anesthetic. Evelyn escalated her efforts, moving from observation to direct inquiry. She requested a detailed curriculum breakdown, not just the glossy pamphlets, but the actual lesson plans for Leo's grade. She asked about the psychological support services, the extracurricular clubs, even the school's hiring policies. Her requests, though always polite and framed within the boundaries of a concerned parent, were met with an increasingly chilly reception. Emails went unanswered for days, phone calls were diverted to automated systems. When she finally secured a meeting with Dr. Alistair Thorne himself, she was struck by his preternatural calm. Thorne sat behind a grand mahogany desk, a framed quote about shaping minds for a better future, dominating the wall behind him. His charisma was undeniable, a subtle force that made you want to believe every word he uttered. "Mrs. Reed, I understand your concern," he began, his voice a balm. "But Leo is flourishing. We are cultivating a generation of individuals who understand the importance of conformity for the greater." Evelyn's forensic mind, accustomed to disassembling financial fraud, now turned its rigorous gaze upon Hawthorne Academy. Her initial attempts were subtle, aimed at gathering more data. She volunteered for the PTA, attended every parent-teacher conference, and even signed up for parent observation days in Leo's classroom. The school, superficially, was a marvel of educational design. Classrooms were bright, technologically advanced, and the teachers, impeccably professional, spoke in measured, soothing tones. But the more Evelyn observed, the more the pervasive calm began to feel less like serenity and more like suppression. The children, even during recess, engaged in structured play, their laughter muted, their interactions remarkably free of the usual childish squabbles or spontaneous outbursts. During lessons, they answered questions with uncanny precision, often echoing the teacher's exact phrasing. It was a learning environment designed for perfection, and perfection, Evelyn knew, often masked a deeper imperfection. Her attempts to casually question teachers about Leo's new interests or the structured aesthetics curriculum were met with polite, yet firm, evasions. "Leo is simply adapting beautifully to our holistic approach, Mrs. Reed," Mrs. Albright, Leo's homeroom teacher, would say, her smile fixed, her eyes curiously flat. "He's truly embracing our values." It was always values, harmony, collective pursuit. The vocabulary was a carefully curated lexicon, repeated until it lost all meaning, becoming a verbal anesthetic. Evelyn escalated her efforts, moving from observation to direct inquiry. She requested a detailed curriculum breakdown, not just the glossy pamphlets, but the actual lesson plans for Leo's grade. She asked about the psychological support services, the extracurricular clubs, even the school's hiring policies. Her requests, though always polite and framed within the boundaries of a concerned parent, were met with an increasingly chilly reception. Emails went unanswered for days. Phone calls were diverted to automated systems. When she finally secured a meeting with Dr. Alistair Thorne himself, she was struck by his preternatural calm. Thorne sat behind a grand mahogany desk, a framed quote about shaping minds for a better future dominating the wall behind him. His charisma was undeniable, a subtle force that made you want to believe every word he uttered. "Mrs. Reed, I understand your concern," he began, his voice a balm. "But Leo is flourishing. We are cultivating a generation of individuals who understand the importance of conformity for the greater good." He spoke of a world plagued by individualism, by dissenting voices that shattered harmony. His curriculum, he explained, was designed to gently guide children towards a collective consciousness, to teach them to prioritize group consensus over personal desire. It was chillingly articulate, almost persuasive, if Evelyn hadn't already seen the gradual erosion of her son's spirit. When she pressed for specifics on how this guidance was implemented, his smile remained, but his eyes hardened. "Our methods are proprietary, Mrs. Reed, designed with the utmost care for our students' well-being. Perhaps you're simply unaccustomed to our advanced pedagogical techniques." The meeting ended with pleasantries, but Evelyn left with a cold certainty. Thorne was hiding something profound, and he was dangerously good at it. Undeterred, Evelyn turned to her professional skills. She started looking for patterns outside the school walls. She spoke to other parents, subtly probing for similar changes in their children. Many dismissed her concerns, echoing Thorne's rhetoric about adaptation and Hawthorne's unique methods. But a few, a very small number, confided their own vague unease. A neighbor mentioned her daughter, once a budding artist, now only drawing geometric patterns. Another parent expressed quiet worry about their son's sudden disinterest in competitive sports, opting instead for team-building exercises. These scattered anecdotes were like faint signals in the noise, confirming Evelyn wasn't imagining things. She began to wonder about the school's funding, its board members, its historical trajectory. Leveraging her forensic accounting expertise, she started digging into publicly available records, property deeds, nonprofit filings, corporate registrations associated with Hawthorne Academy. It was tedious work, cross-referencing obscure shell companies and tracing convoluted financial pathways. But Evelyn was patient. She found a complex web of investments, charitable donations, and seemingly unrelated businesses that all seemed to funnel into or benefit from Hawthorne Academy. The financial structure was designed to be opaque, a labyrinth of interconnected entities, yet it lacked the obvious signs of financial fraud she was used to. This wasn't about stealing money. It was about power and control, masked by legitimacy. The true breakthrough came not from financial records, but from a seemingly innocuous detail. During one of her visits, she overheard a fragment of conversation between two janitors about maintenance schedules for the old wing. Hawthorne Academy prided itself on being a modern institution, yet it had an old wing that was never used, always locked and not featured in any tours. Her curiosity piqued. Evelyn cross-referenced the school's blueprints with historical property maps she found in the city archives. She discovered that the old wing, officially a storage facility, had undergone significant, unadvertised renovations years ago, including the installation of advanced soundproofing and specialized ventilation systems. Equipment highly unusual for simple storage. More unsettling was her discovery of a hidden entrance, not on any public blueprint, leading directly to this renovated section. It wasn't just a hidden room. It was a carefully concealed, highly sophisticated facility. A chill snaked down Evelyn's spine. This wasn't about a quirky curriculum or overly strict discipline. This was about something far more deliberate, far more sinister. The realization hit her with the force of an audit finding. Hawthorne Academy wasn't just educating children. and was systematically reprogramming them. And whatever was happening behind those hidden walls was the key. She knew, with a terrifying certainty, that she was no longer just a concerned parent. She was an investigator on the brink of exposing a profound and dangerous secret. The discovery of the hidden renovations in Hawthorne Academy's old wing transformed Evelyn's quiet concern into a focused, almost obsessive mission. Her nights, once spent reviewing financial ledgers, were now dedicated to clandestine research. She dove deeper into the school's online presence, meticulously analyzing every photo, every video, searching for any fleeting glimpse of the concealed area. She cross-referenced satellite imagery with old architectural drawings, noting discrepancies, anomalies that hinted at hidden structures. Her forensic mind, trained to detect the slightest hint of digital manipulation, began to pick up on subtle cues in promotional videos, an odd echo in an otherwise soundproofed hall, a camera angle meticulously avoiding a certain section of the building, a brief, almost imperceptible flicker in lighting that suggested a hidden doorway. These weren't overt clues, but to Evelyn, they were as damning as a forged signature on a contract. The more she dug, the more the polished facade of Hawthorne Academy began to chip away, revealing a chillingly precise and meticulously constructed illusion. The headmaster, Dr. Thorne, suddenly appeared less like a visionary educator and more like the architect of a grand, sinister design. Evelyn knew she couldn't rely solely on digital breadcrumbs. She needed to get inside. Her opportunity arrived with the annual Hawthorne Founders Gala, an extravagant black tie event designed to woo wealthy donors. It was her chance to blend in, to get close to the old wing. Armed with a borrowed evening gown and a carefully constructed cover story about being a prospective major donor, a role her forensic research had ironically made somewhat believable, she entered the opulent school grounds. The gala was a dazzling distraction, a symphony of polite conversation and clinking champagne glasses, but Evelyn's senses were hyper-alert. While others mingled, she subtly navigated the less trafficked corridors, her heart thumping against her ribs. She noted the placement of security cameras, the patrol routes of the few unobtrusive guards. Her experience with corporate espionage investigations had taught her the art of blending invisibility with hyper-awareness. She found the hidden entrance she'd identified in the blueprints, a cleverly disguised panel built into a seemingly ordinary bookshelf in a dimly lit library alcove. Her fingers brushed against the cool, smooth surface, confirming it wasn't just a decorative piece. The knowledge that she was inches away from the truth, from whatever was truly happening to Leo and the other children, sent a jolt of ice through her veins. The next step was gaining access. Evelyn, always methodical, started researching methods for bypassing high-tech security, a stark departure from her usual professional endeavors. She discovered online communities dedicated to ethical hacking and physical security analysis, absorbing information like a sponge. She learned about electromagnetic locks, remote access systems, and the subtle art of social engineering, manipulating human behavior to gain unauthorized access. It was during this intense period of self-education that she reconnected with an old college acquaintance, Marcus Thorne, no relation to the headmaster, thankfully, a former IT specialist who had since become a cybersecurity consultant. Marcus, with his sardonic wit and unparalleled technical prowess, initially found Evelyn's hobby amusing. But as she cautiously revealed more of her concerns about Hawthorne, his professional curiosity turned into genuine alarm. He agreed to help, providing her with a discreet electronic device that could scan and potentially disrupt basic security frequencies, along with a crash course in its operation. "This isn't for breaking into Fort Knox, Ev," he'd warned, "but if their tech's as self-contained as you say, it might just give you a window." He also gave her crucial advice. Document everything, every single detail. Your background means you understand the power of proof. Armed with Marcus's device and a surge of desperate courage, Evelyn planned her infiltration. She chose a late night. During a planned school maintenance shutdown she'd gleaned from an online calendar, a small window when routine security protocols might be slightly relaxed. The moon cast long shadows across the empty campus as Evelyn, dressed in dark clothing, approached the hidden entrance. The device Marcus had given her glowed faintly in her hand as she pressed it against the disguised panel. A low hum, then a barely audible click echoed in the silence. The panel slid inward, revealing a narrow, darkened corridor. The air inside was cool, sterile, with a faint, metallic tang. As she stepped inside, a wave of profound dread washed over her, a premonition of the disturbing truths that awaited her. This was no ordinary school wing. The corridor led to a series of pristine, stark white rooms, unlike any she'd seen in the main building. They were equipped with rows of ergonomic chairs, each facing a large interactive screen embedded in the wall. The screens displayed complex geometric patterns, shifting colors, and rapidly flashing subliminal messages that Evelyn couldn't quite decipher, but felt an immediate, unsettling impact from. Speakers barely visible emitted a low-frequency hum, almost below the threshold of human hearing. Yet she could feel its vibration in her bones, a subtle pressure behind her eyes. It was clear. This was not a place of traditional learning. This was a sophisticated, high-tech conditioning center designed to systematically reshape young minds. Inside the pristine, chillingly silent rooms of Hawthorne Academy's hidden wing, Evelyn's forensic mind began to piece together the fragments of the secret curriculum with terrifying speed. The interactive screens, though dormant at her arrival, held residual data logs visible only to her trained eye. She saw patterns of rapid-fire image sequences, text flashes below the threshold of conscious perception, and complex auditory loops designed for subliminal input. Marcus's device, now used not to bypass security but to interface with the school's internal network, allowed her limited access to the system's files. What she found confirmed her darkest fears: detailed developmental profiles for each student, meticulously tracking their emotional responses, their deviations from desired behaviors, and their progress in harmonization protocols. Leo's file was there, a series of graphs showing his individualistic tendencies steadily declining, replaced by an unsettling rise in group adherence and compliance metrics. The curriculum was a sophisticated, multi-layered system of neurolinguistic programming and psychological conditioning, designed not to educate, but to systematically overwrite children's innate personalities, replacing critical thought with unquestioning conformity. Thorne wasn't just teaching them, he was building them, engineering future citizens who would never challenge the established order, never question authority, never deviate from the collective pursuit of excellence. The air, once merely sterile, now felt heavy with the silent echoes of countless young minds being reshaped, their vibrant individuality slowly extinguished. The true horror deepened when Evelyn found the financial records within the system. The discrete shell companies she'd identified earlier weren't just funneling money to Hawthorne. They were also receiving substantial payments from a consortium of powerful, seemingly unrelated corporations and political entities. These weren't educational grants, they were investments. Investments in the meticulous molding of future leaders, innovators, and even voters, all aligned with a very specific, unyielding ideology. Thorne, she realized, wasn't just a charismatic headmaster. He was a highly compensated architect of human behavior, funded by shadowy figures who sought to control society from its nascent stages. The names on the ledgers, once merely data points, now transformed into a chilling network of influence. Tech giants seeking compliant workforces, political think tanks desiring unquestioning electorates, even defense contractors looking for adaptable, uncritical minds. This wasn't just about a school, it was about a global influence operation, with Hawthorne Academy as its insidious incubator. Evelyn meticulously downloaded every file, every log, every piece of evidence onto a secure encrypted drive Marcus had provided. She recorded the rooms, the equipment, the chilling data on her phone, ensuring undeniable proof of Thorne's psychological factory. With the evidence secured, Evelyn's next challenge was the unmasking. She couldn't simply go to the police. Thorne's network was too powerful, too deeply entrenched. He would discredit her, label her a delusional, overprotective parent. She needed a strategic, overwhelming blow, something that would dismantle his authority beyond repair. Her 25 years of experience as a forensic accountant, combined with Marcus's tech expertise, became her arsenal. They analyzed the data, cross-referencing names, dates, and financial transactions. Marcus discovered a pattern of highly secure, encrypted video conferences scheduled weekly, involving Thorne and the powerful figures funding his operation. He confirmed that the next one was scheduled for the upcoming Parent-Teacher Appreciation Day, a heavily attended event designed to showcase Hawthorne's success. This was Evelyn's opportunity. Her plan was audacious, risky, and designed with the precision of a high-stakes audit. She would leverage Marcus's ability to hijack the school's main projector system during Thorne's customary headmaster's address, a moment when every parent, teacher, and major donor would be present. The Parent-Teacher Appreciation Day arrived, bathed in the same artificial calm that permeated Hawthorne Academy. Dr. Thorne, resplendent in his tailored suit, stood on the stage, his silver hair gleaming under the spotlights, his voice a mesmerizing blend of wisdom and warmth as he began his address. Welcome, cherished parents and dedicated educators, to another testament of Hawthorne's unwavering commitment to shaping the minds of tomorrow. As his words echoed through the auditorium, Evelyn, positioned strategically near the back, caught Marcus's subtle nod from the projection booth. Her heart hammered, but her hand remained steady as she activated a small, innocuous-looking device. Mid-sentence, Thorne's image on the large projector screen flickered, then dissolved, replaced by a live feed of the encrypted video conference Marcus had hijacked. The faces of the powerful benefactors, usually hidden behind layers of corporate secrecy, were now projected in stark, undeniable clarity for all to see. Then came the audio. Thorne's voice not from the stage, but from the video feed, discussing projected conformity rates, the integration of emotional suppression modules, and the optimization of groupthink protocols. He was articulating the true nature of his curriculum to his investors. Unaware, he was broadcasting it to every shocked parent and teacher in the room. As the chilling dialogue filled the auditorium, the parents' murmurs rose to a collective gasp, then a roar of horrified disbelief. The polished facade of Hawthorne Academy shattered, revealing the sinister truth beneath. Thorne's face, on stage, contorted in a mix of fury and dawning horror. His carefully constructed empire, built on the unwitting minds of children, crumbled around him in a cacophony of outraged cries. Evelyn, watching the chaos erupt, felt a wave of cold satisfaction. The wheels of justice, once obscured by Thorne's charisma, were finally turning, and she had just supplied the undeniable truth that would drive them home.